Welcome to the Caravan Show, where we discuss all things caravans. That's right, everything you need to know about caravans, from weight, towing, maintenance, appliances, renovations, buying a caravan, repairs, destinations and reviews. We'll also chat with some Aussie legends, manufacturers, suppliers and of course, people who love caravans. Take it away, Roy.
G'day everybody, it's Roy here from the Caravan Show, and I'm very pleased to say I have Nikki Robertson on the other line. Now, Nikki's the centre manager for the information there at Quirindi, which is part of the Liverpool Plains area. Now, I'm very lucky that we got Nikki because Nikki's actually working. So during the course of this, if anyone walks into the visitors centre, they're actually inadvertently going to join us on the podcast, which is kind of exciting. So welcome aboard, Nikki.
Thank you. And I'm actually not in Quirindi. I'm in a tiny little hamlet called Willow Tree, which is just south of Quirindi. But Quirindi is the main hub of the Liverpool Plains, which we're servicing to with all the other villages.
So how far out of Quirindi is that, sorry?
It's about 19 kilometres, but Quirindi is not on a main highway, and Willow Tree is actually on the New England Highway just before the Camillery Highway starts going to Gunnedah on the left, and that's why the information centre is in Willow Tree and not in Quirindi.
Which probably means that Quirindi is a bit of an unknown turf, isn't it? I've personally been there, but I guess a lot of people would not make that turn off. They're going to just bypass you.
Absolutely, and that's why we're here to actually point out this little hidden gem.
Great. Say, hey guys, make the next turning because it's worthwhile, and we're going to establish shortly why it is. So, Nikki, just coming back to you, are you a local girl?
Yes.
And how long have you been doing what you're doing today?
The Visitor Information Centre is actually celebrating its 10th anniversary this year, and I have been working at the centre since its opening in 2010, managing it since 2013.
Well, if there's an expert in your area, it should be you then.
Yes, and I've got, if I don't know it, I know somebody who does, so yes.
Good stuff. So tell us a little bit more about your area. How big is Liverpool Plain as an area that comes under that control?
Okay, well, you're asking me a question here with I'm not very good at numbers.
That's okay.
But it includes villages like Werris Creek and Quirindi, which are the bigger towns, and then small villages like Willow Tree, Wollabada, Carababila, Prima, Springridge and Coruna. So it is quite a big area. It spans sort of from the Upper Hunter towards Gunnedah and Quirindi.
So clearly we're in New South Wales, obviously.
Yes.
And how far out of your nearest city would you be?
Well, we are about 4.5-hour drive from Sydney and just 50 k's south of Tamworth.
Oh, of course. Well, Tamworth is a magnificent place to go as well. Everyone's heard of the Tamworth Festival. But people aren't really coming through your area when they go to Tamworth from Sydney. They're still going to make that turn there somewhere, haven't they?
Well, look, I like to zigzag people through the Liverpool Plains because we have a town called Wollabada on the New England Highway, which is very interesting too. It's got quite a quirky attraction there, which you wouldn't expect to be there. So, and then I like to steer them to Wollabada and then Quirindi, Werris Creek up to Tamworth. So traditionally we are a bit of a go-through area on the way to Brisbane, and we're just here to make people stop and have a look around, yeah.
Come on, you've got me going now. You're saying there's something there that you haven't told us what it is, though.
No, I
Share.
haven't.
Come on, share.
Okay. So Wollabada is the home of the First and Second Fleet Memorial Gardens. So it's a memorial garden to First and Second Fleet that came out from England. It's got every name listed of everyone who was on the boats, be it sailors, marines, doctors, or convicts. And it's got lots of information. For example, it's got a list of supplies that were on the ship. So you might want to ask, why is it in Wollabada? What's the
I was just going to ask that question. Yeah, what's it doing there?
Yeah, well, it's there because nobody else wanted it. It's a bit sad, but Ray Collins is a stonemason, and he, in his late 50s, he found out that he's actually a descendant of a First Fleet convict, and his family was embarrassed about it and changed their family name. And so that's why he didn't find out until rather late in his life. And he thought, well, that's something to be proud of because these people built this country as it is today. And so we should really appreciate that. So he set out to build this memorial garden to his ancestors and everybody else who was on the First Fleet, and pitched it to 10 different councils who all didn't want it, until he came to the Liverpool Plains and they said, well, why don't you build it in Wollabada? And so, yeah, we're lucky to have it.
Wow. History is one of the things we talk a lot about in the show, because when people are travelling overseas, that's usually part of the reason that they say, well, you know, we want to go and see history. But in reality, we've got lots of history here in Australia. Okay, we don't go back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years or thousands of years, but, you know, well, actually, go to Winton and we can go back millions, but let's avoid that one for a moment. But there is still lots of Australian history available in our regional centres, and they're not far from our major cities. We can travel there, and when we get there, there's usually lots to see. So tell us a little bit more about what there is to see in your area.
Okay, so history-wise, we've also got a very rich railway history. So in the old days, you would have gone to Brisbane via the New England Highway. But when the railway came in, it went through the valley. So if you go to Tamworth on the New England Highway, it takes you over hills, whereas if you go via Quirindi, it's the flat part. So that's another plus for caravanners, because they usually prefer the flatter road rather than the hilly way. So, and so that's why Quirindi then took off, because the railway went through that way. So, and Werris Creek used to be a buzzing railway town in its heydays. So, and today you will find there the Australian Railway Monument and Rail Journeys Museum.
Now, of course,
paying homage to those times, yeah.
At the moment, of course, we're still in certain lockdowns and got lots of restrictions given the COVID-19 thing. Yep. But under normal conditions, and hopefully they'll return to that very shortly, how many caravan parks have you got in the area?
So we've got one caravan park, which is in Quirindi. It's a council-run one. It is unmanned, but we've got 6 freedom camping areas. So in the towns of Willow Tree, Wollabada, Spring Ridge, Prima, Carabopula and Werris Creek. And all those freedom camping areas, they're unfortunately not open as yet, but we hope they will open soon.
So actually your area lends itself quite nicely to free camp areas. Are they well provided for? Are there dump points and so forth in those areas?
We have a dump point in Quirindi, but which is like either. It's really a 15-minute drive between towns, except for Spring Ridge and Prima, which are further out. But every camping area has got hot showers and toilets, which are free. And then Prima and Willow Tree, they've got powered sites.
So I was just having a quick look, actually, about how large your area is. And, it's not massive, but there's quite a lot within that area. Do you know what your population is?
It's around 8,000.
Yeah, 8,000 people in still a relatively large area by international standards, but there's still lots more to see than what we've been talking about there, isn't there?
Absolutely. Look, I mean, besides the attractions, we have the First Fleet Gardens and the Railway Monument. There's also Bobshed, very quirky. So it's halfway to the lookout. The lookout's called Who'd Have Thought It Lookout.
Tell us a bit more about Bobshed, because Bobshed isn't a well-known thing for the rest of us, but obviously it's a fairly important part in your area, and I have personally visited Bobshed in the past. So tell us about it.
So Bob's a collector. He's got a shed which is the envy of many a man. So, and he's got a general store set up in the 40s, 50s style, and people can just see things that they grew up with or they saw their grandmothers buy, and Bob's got lots of stories to go with all the things he has. So he's also got a pub set up with beer cans from everywhere, and again, lots of stories attached to each one of them. And he's got an incredible collection of Peter Brock memorabilia. So very, very quirky. So you can spend hours there and just reminisce or talk to Bob and listen to his stories.
Yeah, every town's got to have a Bob, don't they?
Yes, yeah, that's right. So, and it is halfway to the Who'd Have Thought It Lookout, which gives you a 360-degree view on the whole area. So we go really from the Great Divide, the hilly end of the Liverpool Plains, all the way out to the fertile black soil plains, which gives us seasonal colours from canola in September to the marvellous sunflowers in December, and sorghum, cotton. So, yeah, there's always something to see.
Of course, you mentioned sunflower, and sunflower actually plays a huge role in your region, doesn't it?
It does, because people just love them. So, but it's hard to say when they grow. So at the moment, they're not growing. It's a summer crop. But I cannot tell where and when they're going to be growing next year, because it depends on the rain forecast. It depends on the moisture in the ground. It also depends on the price of sunflower seeds. So in September is the first opportunity for farmers to plant sunflowers, and this is when I get on the phone and talk to my contacts and ask, are you growing sunflowers this year and when? And if I find out, then I put the information out on my sunflower alert, so people can subscribe to the sunflowers alert to find out when and where they are.
Beautiful. So do you have a website that people can go to find this sort of information?
We sure do. It's www.visitliverpoolplains.com.au.
Beautiful, Nikki. Thank you. So, Nikki, there's things to see, there's places to park and so forth, but how much of an impact has this COVID-19 had, and how important actually is our caravanners and visitors and the tourist industry to your region?
It is very important, and that's why we've set up the freedom camping areas all over the Liverpool Plains, because we really determined to slow people down and have a look around. And people who've been here, they love it. It's so versatile. There's lots to see and do. We've got and also from the point of view restaurants, we've got gourmet restaurants, we've got takeaways, we've got everything. So to choose from. So it's really worthwhile stopping and having a look around.
So there must be local produce that you're putting out as well.
Yep, yeah, local produce, and you can buy those at the information centre, but also at outlets like the Plains Pantry in Willow Tree, which is a bit of a gourmet hub. And there's a arts and crafts shop in Quirindi at the railway station where you can buy local produce. They have a cake day every Thursday, all homemade cakes, and the quirky little things that make people welcome and let you really know you're in the country, you're being looked after.
Were you affected by the fires?
Not by the fires, but by the drought.
Right.
Yeah, the drought has been horrible, and we haven't had any sunflowers. The first sunflowers we had growing was actually in April during the lockdown, which was devastating. It was really sad, to see that we've got two beautiful crops going and we can't let people come and see them. But so we had a wet start to the year, so that's been positive. So not everything about 2020 has been negative. We've had some beautiful rain, and it's still coming. And the farmers are actually very optimistic about next year's summer crops.
Australians are very generous by nature, and they're the first to put their hands in the pockets to support charities, and the bushfire was obviously a good example of that. But they don't actually need to put their hands in the pockets and pass out dough for charity, when in fact what they can do is just to take a little time and go and visit our regions and spend some money with our regional centres and get some enjoyment out of it. And they're really supporting Australians in the best possible way. Now, bearing that in mind, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit with this one, Nikki, and it's because it's a favourite question of mine. I can go on Google, I can find some of the information out that you've told us about, but there's invariably always one or two free secret places that only people like yourself know about, and I want you to share a couple of those with our listeners.
Well, we don't like to keep the secrets for ourselves because we really want to share them. So it is more of like, you can find everything on our website, but it is more a sort of coupling our attractions and our places with people. What do they want? What are they after? Which place is perfect for who? So we've got, as I said, Willow Tree is a small little hamlet, but it's surprisingly a gourmet hub in the Liverpool Plains with a Gray's restaurant, serving the best steak in New South Wales. And And then the Plains Pantry, which has homemade pies. And people, come through and say, well, I've had the best pie ever. So, but it might not be the best pie ever for everyone. So it is really the coupling, yeah.
So it's quite surprising to find out it's an area where you can actually have gourmet food, and and you wouldn't expect that in the middle of nowhere, basically.
That's right. So, and that's I think it's more of a bit the surprise factor, like the First Fleet Gardens. You wouldn't expect that in Wollabada, yet it's there. And so we do take people by surprise when they do stop and have a look around, and also by the amount of things that are around. So we don't want people just to stop for a coffee and lunch, but for a couple of days.
So within these things to do, I mean, obviously eating something we all like to do, and we can do that really well in your area. There are some places to go, places to visit, some educational things like the museum for the railway and, of course, Bobshed. There's fishing available in your area?
Yes, fishing is available. We have a dam, the Quirindi Dam. It's got a recreation area out there. You're not allowed to boat because it is our water supply. So, but you can fish from the shores.
Do you need a license for fishing in that dam?
That is a good question. I'd say so. Yes, you do.
Yeah,
you do. And you can actually get that license, now that you mention it's a question I haven't answered for a while, but you can get a license at the petrol station out of Quirindi called... Oh.
You're looking it up, aren't you, Nikki?
Sorry?
You're looking it up, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
No,
I'm trying to remember.
We'll come back to that. The one that's cool.
Yes.
So there's lots of things to see, lots of things to do. We can do photography because there's plenty of photography opportunity there. So I guess there must be a fairly decent abundance of wildlife as well.
Yes, of birds. We've got a bird hide at Quirindi Dam, and a lot of birds that are quite rare to see, but don't ask me their names.
That's okay. What about people bringing their children to your region? Are there things for the kids to do?
Absolutely. So what I haven't mentioned yet is the Heritage Village. So just out of Quirindi on the Camilleri Highway is the Heritage Village, and it's got some beautiful displays of how this place came about. And it's sort of set out in scenes. So you've got a kitchen scene and an office scene and a living room. And they're currently also working on a model train display, which is going to be opened in October. And every fourth Sunday per month, they've got a miniature railway running where you can sit on and go through a little drive around the lake and through a tunnel. And so it's very exciting.
Sounds like fun. So because you're actually not that far out of Tamworth, all the facilities that our listeners need for way of, repairs on caravans and motor vehicles and so forth, that's all readily available. So, in fact, I would think Liverpool Plains would be a great place to park up and search that entire area with just so much to see within a relatively short distance. Sounds like a great place to go. Yeah, and only, as you say, a short distance out of Sydney, so we don't need to travel thousands of kilometres to get out and do those things. It's actually still on our doorstep. And once we get there, we can park up there inexpensively and go and spend our money with the locals, can't we?
Absolutely. And look, there's no crowds. See, I mean, we're an area. It's always quiet. You won't find crowds anywhere. And even our events, like we've got some very quirky events going throughout the year when there's no COVID lockdown. And our events as well, you will find lots of people, but not crowds, and you don't have the wait that you have anywhere else. So it's enjoyable.
Now, shopping's also another important thing to our listeners when they're travelling around. They still like to go to shops and get their things. But one of their favourite type of shopping, of course, is markets. And generally, we have markets in these areas. I assume that you would have markets in your area.
We do have a market every second Saturday in Quirindi, but then there's also the specialty markets like Christmas markets in Caravan, Christmas and Mother's Day markets they have twice a year, and they are just absolutely fabulous, and people come from far to go to them. And also there is a Christmas market in Quirindi as well in December. So all these are on our website, all these events.
Well, it certainly sounds like a place to go.
Mm.
Nikki, look, you've been fantastic. Thank you for coming on the show today. Is there any last things you can think of that you want to express to the listeners out there about coming to the Liverpool Plains area?
No, just, come and find us. We're welcoming. We would love to see you. But as I said, at the moment, the freedom camping areas are still closed. But do inquire, please. I do take numbers down to let people know when we open. It also, on our website is constantly refreshed, and you will find current information on it all the time. So it will be the first place to get notified when we do open.
Is there a particular time of year that would be good for these visitors?
Well, any time of the year. It does get cold in winter, so we do have big frosts. But that's why we have powered sites in Willow Tree and in Prima. They're quite popular in the middle of winter and in the middle of summer, so people can use their air con. But otherwise, look, autumn's very nice, spring's nice. Have a look at our website when there's events on. So we do have the Quirindi Spring Show, or then we've got the military tattoo in March. You can coincide with. But look, really, any time of the year, there's something to see and do.
So, guys and girls, if you haven't been to the Liverpool Plains area in the past, please put it on your list of places and things to do. They need you out there, just like the rest of Australia does. And this COVID-19 is only going to be around for a relatively short period of time. And when it all opens up, don't book the plane tickets and don't jump on the boats. Jump in your car, hook up your caravan and go and support Australia. So again, Nikki, thank you so much for taking your time out today. I must say I'm a little disappointed that there wasn't an interruption. No one was coming to the door and banging on at the window and saying, give me directions. But hopefully when we finish this, there'll be more people doing it.
Thank you very much, Roy, for having me.
You're most welcome. Thanks again. Bye for now.
Okay, bye-bye.